The lab reports do after this.
There's only one way to figure it out.
Good morning. Good time. Okay, we're getting started now. Baruch Hashem. We're going to do today's topic is two things. First of all, sheni and mavashel, that sheni doesn't cook. Plus, what does that mean? What are the details of making coffee and tea on Shabbat? And then, if we have time, we're going to try to do the Gemara here, going from Mem Amud to Mem Aleph together. It's a little bit of a guidance, a little bit of story, and a few other points to bring out. Okay? We're going to also, we want to deal with the following thing. The Gemara says on Mem Amud that we saw a story with Rabbi that was in the Merchat. He said the student take some water, put it in a kli sheni, put it in a second vessel, and then he'll put in the oil to heat up. Why? Because kli sheni is not mavashel. Okay. And from here we learn a principle. You can put things into a kli sheni. That was one Gemara with Rabbi. The Rashba writes, that was the only Gemara, it could have just said, it's very limited. Kli sheni only means with the hot springs of Tiberia, and we're only talking about oil. And if you take a bucket of hot springs of Tiberia and you put that into a kli sheni and then you put in the oil, it doesn't cook. But in general, am I allowed to start cooking the tradition soup or the coffee or whatever with the kli sheni? No, it's the only hot springs of Tiberia. It's very limited. Why? Because hot springs of Tiberia, how hot do they get already? 150 degrees, 100 degrees, whatever. How hot do they possibly get? It's going to cook the oil. Not cooking, that's why it's good to go. But you can't expand it. The Rashba says like that. However, no, you can't really say that. Why? Because we have another Mishnah. We're going to deal with more proofs of kli sheni as doesn't mavashel, besides Rabbi, which one of them was the Mishnah Mem Aleph Amud Aleph. It tells us, if you had a hot urn, a hot urn that was filled with hot water, you're not allowed to put in cold water. Then you see kli rishon, but kos, the top kos is mutar, into a second cup. Okay, so I wanted to discuss right now one experiment we're going to do. Because if you have the hot water, okay, Bezrat Hashem, I brought in, you guys can see, this is an egg, a raw egg, an expensive experiment to see if it's put on Wyatt's budget. See, you can see if this is raw, you can hear it inside, whatever, regular. Egg, I'm going to try to see if, I'm betting my lunch on this, see if this works. I'm going to put it inside a kli sheni. This is hot boiling water. You can see it's smoking, it's pretty hot.
It fits?
Yeah, it fits perfectly. Thank you so much.
You're not going to crack it?
I'm not going to crack it. No, I don't want scrambled egg. I want hard boiled egg.
Hey, just put it in. Can we fill it up more?
No, it's good. We'll see in 25 minutes. We'll see if it cooks or not. Or we'll see if I have no lunch. Okay? Now, the Gemara said, so seemingly, we should not have any hot water. We shouldn't have hot water. We shouldn't have a hard boiled egg. We should have raw egg when it comes out in 20 minutes. We'll see what happens. Now, the questions on kli sheni. So it is a klal. Is it a principle? It is a principle. And you have it from this Mishnah Mem Aleph and the Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch. Yes, kli sheni is not mavashel. Are there any exceptions to that? What do you guys learn? Are there any exceptions to that? Kli sheni doesn't cook?
Yeah, things that are easily cooked.
Things that cook very, very easily. For example, salty fish. That was the Gemara's example. The tuna fish, Rashi told us. Okay, those things cook very easily. Now, what about coffee, tea? Could you put that in kli sheni? What are the rules about kli sheni? Okay, what about an egg on Shabbat? Can I do this? Can I put the egg in a hot water urn on Shabbat and close it? Is that going to be mutar? Can I do it with the tradition soup? So
Is closing it a problem?
closing it, what could be the problem? Good question. What would be the problem? Hamana. So the answer is there's no hamana in kli sheni. So the answer is we didn't deal with hamana, but no, it would be mutar.
What's hamana?
Hamana is insulating. Insulating it means wrapping it in some way, keeping it hot. On Shabbat, you can't do it on top of a hot plate. You can't put on a hot plate a blanket or towels and wrapping up a pot. They put the food on the hot plate. But you can't start taking towels and start wrapping it up. That's hamana to wrap it up.
What they do in the Mishkan that they put in.
What? No, they didn't. Okay, so hamana is not from the Mishkan, so to speak. Hamana is a gezerah d'Rabbanan. The rabbis come with that decree, so you can't do it because if you start wrapping things up, you're going to start stoking the coals.
You can't fully wrap it, or it's a problematic even if you
So
just put a towel on top.
Pretty good. Ashkenazim and Sfaradim argue on this. Ashkenazim say you can't even. Ashkenazim are lenient over here. You can't fully wrap it. Anything else is okay. The Sfaradim hold even one side is a problem. So Sfaradim, what I call the hamana blankets. I don't like this. That they make in the Judaic stores. They have a blanket. They go on top of all the food on top of the hot plate. So you put on top of all the food. So I think that's Hamana. Most people don't violate Hamana. No one ever learns about Hamana or knows about Hamana because no one ever does it in our day. All the food we have is hot because the hot plate's hot. You don't need you don't need it insulate. So they make these blankets for a Sfaradim. It's not at all kosher. If someone does so, you have what to rely on because blankets are mavos. If hevel, if you did it before Shabbat, and maybe it's not direct. There's what to talk about, but it's not at all pashut. Better is not to use those blankets. If you want hot food, use a hot plate. Or use there are other ways of heating up our food, don't use these things. According to Ashkenazim is mutar, according to Sfaradim, you have to use a lot of snifim to be lenient.
If you put like a bunch of pots on the top of a bunch of pots, are the bottom ones being insulated by the top ones?
Good, that's mutar. That's a good question. Technically, we hold that's mutar. That's a machlok in the Gemara. We hold one pot on top of the other is okay.
What about foil?
Foil, that's a good machlok. Could I wrap the challah in aluminum foil and then put it in the oven? Now you can't put it in the oven if the oven's on Mexican shell on Shabbat. That's a separate point.
No, not even an oven, just on a
hot plate. Good,
yeah.
on a hot plate. Good. Could I put the challah in the tinfoil on a hot plate? So on this, Moshe said, sure. Well, people put food in pots and cover the pot. All right, you're allowed to put the rice inside a pot. Put the pot cover on the hot plate. Hamanam insulating with the pot. So this is a very old question. It's already in the Torah in the Shulchan Aruch. He writes, this is derech bishul. It's not derech hamanam, meaning the normal way to cook is with a pot. In kavanah, your intention is not to be mean to start insulating. My point there is I want my food either to cook or to reheat. So that's not called hamanah. Hamanah is you're adding something external to the pot.
Okay.
So now, what about the aluminum foil? Said Moshe, same thing. The aluminum foil is the pot, so to speak. It's the cover, it's the pot. The whole thing is the aluminum foil.
What about a towel? Not a blanket,
I
but
want
a
to come
towel.
back to towel in one moment. So over here, aluminum foil became a machlok, and everybody agreed with this. Moshe said it was allowed. However, Orchot Shabbat, they said no. They said, why do people put, if you want to put a challah on a hot plate, you don't really need a tinfoil. You put a tinfoil so it doesn't get dirty on the bottom. Putting tinfoil on the top so it stays hot. The reason there is clearly because hamanah. There's not derech bishul. There's derech hamanah. That's why I'm doing it. So they didn't like it. They gave a big machlok. I think there's yesh amal l'smoch to do it. But what I agree with Orchot Shabbat is the following: wrapping it with one foil, I think makes sense. You could say it's keeping it clean. You could say it keeps it so it doesn't get dried out. But you don't need to do more than one round. If you wrap it with one type of tinfoil, or one time with tinfoil, and then you wrap it again, that's hamanah, in my opinion, because there's no reason for a second layer. The second layer is just to keep it hotter. So that would be an issue. Towels, if you take a food and you wrap it with towels, that's hamanah. So we were talking about before, according to the Ashkenazim, you could do it around the side or around the top. You just can't do it on all 6 sides of the pot. But according to Sfaradim, it's a problem even on one side.
Wow,
Okay.
I did not know.
So most people, I would say nowadays, don't wrap up their pots in towels.
Not
but
a
if they-
pot, not a pot. Just like if I have pans with foil on top of it, I would put like a towel on top of that too. Not a pot necessarily.
A pan with food inside. Is the food exposed? The food has a
No,
cover.
the food has
So
the foil on top.
Okay, Ashkenazim allow it. Ashkenazim would allow a towel on top of the pan, but I think for Sfaradim it's better really not to do that. Okay, if your food's not hot, I would say next week just get turn up the hot plate hot or whatever the stove
No, but
top.
sometimes only the bottom of the food is hot and not the top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think so. Okay,
But how
then
did
you have to maybe get another hot plate or whatever. Figure out a way to do it. If you separate it out, I think they do get hot. The top of the food gets hot. I don't know.
If you
And,
do a
I think
hot
that's a
plate
pretty normal.
sandwich, where you do hot plate, food, hot plate.
I don't know about that one.
No, it's like if you figure out a way to make it work, that's okay. I mean, I don't know how it's gonna work. Whatever. Invent one, and then
Yeah.
we'll market it. Okay, good. I wanted to start really not hamanah. I really want to start kli sheni. So what are the Rishonim talking about kli sheni? We saw Tosfot asked the following question: what's the deal with kli sheni? Why does it make any sense to say you're allowed to cook in a kli sheni? So it says, is it hot or is it not? If it's hot, so then it should be asur to cook, even if it's kli sheni. If it's yatzel le'edabo. And if it's not hot, so who cares? That's kli sheni. Even in kli rishon, you're allowed to cook if it's not hot. It's not yatzel le'edabo. What's going on? This whole business of kli sheni. That's the Tosfot's question. Tosfot, who remembers the answer in Tosfot? Tosfot said the walls of the pot of kli sheni are getting colder. As opposed to the walls of a pot, like this pot of this thermos, they're so hot. But if you had a pot that was on the fire, that was very hot. And it's going to stay hot much longer. Therefore, that's cooking in clear. Shom ben such thing as cooking in kli sheni. Okay? That's what Tosfot answered. Other Rishonim also address this. Rashba writes on the same page, he says, Mali Rishon, Mali Shina. There's really no difference between a first kli and a second kli. He says, Kol Mashum Bashel Asur. He says, fundamentally, all I care about is results. Did it cook or not? Chazal were describing something they saw. Rabbi didn't have a Masorah back to Moshe Rabbeinu. He said, Kli Rishon, that's cooking, Kli Sheni not. The Rashba is positing. How did Rabbi know this? That a Kli Sheni doesn't cook? I tell you, he didn't figure, it's not because he had a gigantic chidush, a drasha, and a pasuk. Kli Sheni is not mashel. It's just what he saw in front of his eyes. He took the water from the hot springs, he tried putting in the oil, and it didn't make it very hot. Simple. It wasn't like a fancy scientific experiment. It was simple, what he saw in front of his eyes. Now, could you expand it? Well, you could say what you could do with the Mishnah said. You could use a kos, you could use a cup, but it's not going to get you that far. Yes?
So why is the water from the hot springs not keli sheni?
He was talking about taking a bucket from the hot springs.
Okay.
And then, tandemly,
What's the difference between taking a bucket from water to heat up from fire?
no, it wouldn't be a difference.
Oh,
Other
okay,
than
okay, fine.
fundamentally no difference, except what Rebbe is talking about, things. This thermos, I'm sure Rebbe didn't have that. In their day, a kli sheni didn't stay hot very long.
Right.
Didn't insulate the heat. Forget about the thermos. Their kli rishon usually wasn't that hot. Meaning, how hard was it to be able? It was very hard to keep the pot of fire, whatever the pot on the fire, very very hot. So it's true, it was hot. But by the time they took it off the coals, by the time it was a few hours into Shabbat, it was not very hot. That's the Rashba's opinion, and he proves it. He says, for example, we say, even a kli sheni, there's such a thing as cooking. How do I know? There's a small fish. There's cooking in the kli sheni with the small fish. You see, once we have one exception, the tiny exception, as soon as it breaks down the whole principle. That's how the Rashba looks. Mali Rishon, Mali Sheni, fundamentally, is really, as long as it's mitbashel, as long as it fundamentally gets cooked. That's what Rashba writes over here. And he's attacking the Balei Tosfot, not what they wrote about the wall so much, but he's attacking what they wrote in terms of kashrut. The Balei Tosfot say that if I have something not kosher, or let's say I'm making a coffee on Shabbat, I forget on Shabbat, on Tuesday, I'm making coffee. And it's boiling hot, and I put in a lot of milk. It's still very hot, let's say. And it's totally dairy, but I'm making it in a meat mug, or I'm making it with a meat spoon. So is that considered now tarev? Now you can't drink it. What do you guys say? Let's say they're both ben yomo, you used it within the day. What do you say? So you would have said maybe tarev. That's what you would have thought. Shulchan Aruch in Simon Kuf Hey Yerodea Sif Aleph. This is Kavush. This is Sif Bet. Kuf Hey Sif Bet says mutar. Why? Kli sheni not mevashel. Kli sheni doesn't do anything when it comes to kashrut. They're all good to go. So the Rashba says that doesn't make any sense. I know Tosfot said we're even posek like that. Ikar hadin. But, however, first of all, the Rif does not hold like that. He holds like the Rashba in Psachim. The Rashba says it doesn't make any sense. You want to talk about Shabbat, we have a certain standard how things cook. So you can talk about Kli Rishon, you can talk about Kli Sheni. Bottom line, it took a long time to cook. The duration of time it took to cook didn't happen in Kli Sheni. It didn't cook, so you're mutar. But that makes no sense. What are you making up a rule with kashrut, Kli Sheni, and Avashel? You can use the spoon that's me in a dairy coffee. Is it hot or is it not hot? Things transfer, the taste transfers as long as things are hot. It doesn't need to be hot for very long to transfer. It could happen very quickly. And therefore, Rashba does not like what the Baal Tosfot say. Okay? So far we have seen, Tosfot, Rashba. Another opinion is the Ritba. The Ritba has a line, and Ben and Aleph, we're going to get to. He says, Kim lahu l'chachamim. The rabbis figured out Kli Sheni v'Rashel. It's pretty clear from this language. Not that there's a rule that we have from Halacha, from Moshe Sinai, that there's such a thing as cooking in a Kli Rishon, but not a Kli Sheni. No! There's no such thing. It's the rabbis figured out what they saw in front of their eyes. So they're talking about things that usually didn't cook in a Kli Sheni. Most foods don't cook in a Kli Sheni, so that's what the Ritva writes as well. He makes the same argument as as his teacher, the Rashba made. He adds on a few other proofs. Okay? In terms of kashrut. A few other proofs. We're gonna skip them for now. Uraim also has the similar lashon. Bishul eno talui lo b'kli rishon v'lo-sheni. Bishul really has nothing to do with kli rishon v'lo-sheni. It's just a sketch, the whole thing. It depends on a soft item could cook in kli sheni. Hard items don't cook in a kli sheni. Basically, saying most things. Now, the Iran was one who's extremely. He's a student of Rabbeinu Tam. He's very, very strict. He says all things really we're not sure. And never can cook in kli sheni. You have to be strict. And we don't follow his opinion. We go with the Chazon Ish. We go with Chamavadi who say most things in the world don't cook in a kli sheni. But it's like you have the small fish that cooks in the kli sheni, and those are asur. And things that we know could cook in kli sheni could be a problem. So which things do we know? Okay, that's what we're going to continue to discuss today. But the fundamental approach I want to describe, according to the Rishonim, is Tosfot, Rashba, Rizba, Urayan, and a few others. They basically are seeming. What's the deal, kli sheni? Why does kli sheni not v'ashel? Who can tell me? Why is kli sheni? Why did the Gemara say kli sheni ain't v'ashel? According to, let's say, Rashba, Rizba, why is it?
During the time, so it was.
It wasn't cooking. That's how Rashba and Rizba see. Is there any other opinion? So, 1600s, there was a discussion about making coffee on Shabbat. Okay? There were the Rav Avram Halevi, Gina Baradim, end of 1600s, the rabbi in Cairo, wrote, he had Gina Baradim as his Tshuva Sefer. He has, his whole Sefer is 4 topics, 4 Tshuvot. Now, when he has these Tshuvot, they have dozens of letters. So there's 100 Tshuvot in the whole book. The third of his 4 letters is about the coffee. Okay? He writes a letter that I saw the people were putting in coffee into Kli Rishon on Shabbat. So he doesn't like it. He's arguing definitely can't do that. And then what about Kli Sheni? So he starts writing letters. And then he corresponds with many other rabbis on this topic about making coffee on Shabbat. Okay? Who did he write to? He wrote to Rav Yaakov Faraji, who was in Alexandria, and to Maram Ibn Chaviv. There's a few others. So the Gina Varadim was, he learned by Salonika, he learned mostly in Egypt, 1600s. Sorry, he's in the end of the 1600s, but he was considered a big gadol. He's quoted by Poskin today, the Gina Varadim, as a kind of known sefer on certain topics that he talks about. And he was involved in agunot. That's what he has tshuvot. He has one tshuva on the agunot issues that he was dealing with. He was a big gadol, and he wrote that for sure you shouldn't be able to put the coffee, he thought, even in a kli sheni, that should be asur. He says why? Because this coffee beans in a kli sheni get soft and gives out a flavor. So you see, it's cooking even a kli sheni. I said, I'll prove it to you. So first of all, then, did anybody disagree? He wrote this to Yaakov Faraji. He said, I don't buy that. He said, in a kli sheni ain't with vashel. It doesn't think in the Gemara you can't put coffee in it. The Gemara actually has an explicit thing we're going to get to. It's tavlin. You're allowed to put spices in a kli sheni. That's explicit. So he says that coffee, spices, is not so different. Right? Matlu Babadi, skipping 5 years, but he has this Shabbat about making the tea on Shabbat, and he also makes this argument that the tea is like tavlin. Okay, it's a kli sheni, should be allowed. Oh, so he sent me this tshuva. I have to apologize. I didn't go through the whole tshuva, but there's other parts of it we have to save. And Rabbi Malu was about his tshuva. But in this argument, it's very important that the Gemara says tavlin don't cook in a kli sheni. So you can also say tea and coffee don't. So this was Rav Yaakov Faraji's opinion. The Maharif, who was in Alexandria 1600s. And then the next letter, Gina Varadim, sends back a letter. He says, Einenu Ra'ot, I see that soft items, certain things, my proof is I didn't experiment with an egg. I put an egg in a kli sheni and it cooked. Now I don't know what the Gina Varadim saw in 1600s. Did that cook? We're going to see in our thermos if it cooks. But that was the Gina Varadim. So Yaakov Faraji writes back to him. He says, you make a good point about the egg. I agree with you. You're not allowed to put an egg in hot water in a kli sheni on Shabbat. You're telling me it cooks. It used to be raw, now it's cooked. Okay, I agree with you. You can't do it on Shabbat. Gina Varadim says, I think it's Yisur Deraita to cook the egg on Shabbat, even kli sheni, and Rav Yaakov Faraji agreed with him. However, now Rav Yaakov Faraji, we may have mentioned him once this year, was about the Rabbeinu Tam opinion. In terms of Gidolei Mitzrayim, the biggest one, who's in the 1500s people have ever heard of, rabbis from Egypt? Radbaz. Radbaz was the basically chief rabbi of Egypt. He wrote many tshuva, 10,000 tshuva. He has a lot he wrote, and he was on the Beit Din. Because Karo knew him. There were many Gidolim who knew Radbaz. After him, a student. Anybody know his student? Mari Kash. and Ahava, that week that we did the Shabbaton, his descendant, son after son, was Eliyahu Castro, the one who spoke from Israel. He's from the Marikash. Anyway, the Marikash is also Rabbi Yaakov Castro, same last name. Anyway, the Marikash was the next Gadol in Egypt, and then the next Gadol, in terms of big Gadolim, was the Gin of Aradi. Those, in terms of like big 1600 Gedolim of Egypt, there was Radvaz, Marikash, Gin of Aradi. So he wrote to so in terms of Rabbeinu Tam, just rewinding, Rabbeinu Tam, Radvaz was very Rabbeinu Tam. There's no other Shittat, it doesn't exist in the other Shittat, you have to keep 72 minutes at the end of Shabbat. Radvaz, he thought the Rambam agreed with this. However, the Maral Bach, okay, we'll talk about him in a second. Maral Bach was, anybody know what Maral Bach was? He lived in, okay, Maral Bach was a descendant of Nebuchadnezzar Yosef. He lived in Yerushalayim in the 1500s. And the Maral Bach was an antagonist. It was a Gadol Hador. His comments on the Torah. Anybody see Hagod Maral Bach on the Torah, on the bottom of the page of Beit Yosef? He argues he was a contemporary of the Mari Beirav. Mari Beirav, who knows him?
He was
Teacher of
The teacher of Rabbi Yosef Karo. And he was the one who created Smicha again. So he was in Tzfat, and he sent letters that people should agree with him on the Chidush of Smicha. Maral Bach is the one who attacked him. He wrote a whole Kuntrus of Smicha that it's wrong. He comes back a few generations from the Nubiya. He lived in Yerushalayim. Okay? Now, the Maral Bach, besides his agreement with Mari Beirav, he also, there's a Mari Ibn Chaviv, who is from his descendant, that's kind of famous, who wrote the Ein Yaakov. Who knows the Ein Yaakov?
yeah. It's the Agadol.
In the days of the Rishonim, everyone was excited by the Rif, the halachot. So what the Rif do, the Rif took snipped out all the Agadot. In the 1600s, people started to say we wanted to learn Agadah. It became very popular. The Maharal wrote a lot about Agadah. Maharshal started to write. In 1600s, Agadot became exciting. So who wrote the book on Agadah? Ein Yaakov. Ein Yaakov. Anybody ever seen it?
Yeah.
It cuts out all the halachot. It just has Agadot. Okay. It puts in on the bottom. Now we have the Maharshal. We have a different reef. Anyway, who knows the reef on the Ein Yaakov? Is the Rabbi Yeshaya Pinto, not the one contemporary, the old 1600 one. There was commentaries on Agadot from the start in the 1500s. Okay, this was the Mari Ibn Chaviv. His descendants, Maram Ibn Chaviv. He had a yeshiva in Yerushalayim, the Beit Yaakov yeshiva in Yerushalayim in the 1600s. So he was corresponding to this conversation, and he said, the Gin of Aradim said, coffee out of the picture. The egg is deraisa, that's put in the Klishini. Rabbi Yaakov Faraji wrote back, he thought the egg he agreed with him, he disagreed with the coffee. He said, the coffee is like a spice. What's the problem? The Gemara says you put spice in Klishini. How are you going to prove that coffee is getting cooked? He says, well, I see it's boiling, I see it's getting softer. He says, if you put cold water, you also get flavor from the coffee bean. It also gets soft. How do you know that there's cooking with the coffee bean? So therefore, they agreed that the egg is asur, but they disagreed about the coffee. So far, clear? Any questions on the story? What's going on? Then, Shuvah number 8 in this conversation, Maram Ibn Chaviv pipes up. He was much older than them. He wrote, what's the problem with the egg? He said it got cooked in Klishini. It doesn't say that in my Gemara. It says, where do we see about egg cooking on Shabbat in the Mishnayot? We dealt with this last week. In the sand, but right in that same Mishnah, next to the Mecham. Exactly, next to Mecham, we said, you can't put an egg next to a hot water urn. Says the Maram Ibn Chaviv, he said, it doesn't say, if the Mishnah thought it was true, it'd be Yisur D'Oraita to put the egg into a Klishini, should have said so. It's a bigger Chidush. Why do you tell me, oh, you're not allowed to cook next to a Kli Rishon on the fire? So it's a bigger Chidush. And when we're talking about things that cook, so we say, Kol Shabbat b'chamim b'Shabbat, anything that cooks on Shabbat, before Shabbat, you're allowed to cook on Shabbat. Okay, Kol Shelo b'chamim b'Lefnei Shabbat, anything that wasn't cooked, you're allowed to cook on Shabbat in a Klishini, whatever you're sprinkle on the water, that's allowed, except for Kolei Saspanim, from the salty fish from Spain. Why did the Mishnah give me an example of salty fish? Give me an egg. Egg is a common example. Why did they talk about, it must be, it's not true. That's Maram Ibn Chaviv. So they wrote back to him and said, I don't understand what you're talking about. We see it's cooking over here. In Yerushalayim, your eggs don't get cooked. He said, no. He said, toldot or is asur. It says you're not allowed to cook with fire. It's asur. Fire or is asur. What about really? Whatever. If you have toldot or derivatives of the fire, is that also asur? Derivatives of fire. One derivative is definitely asur. I can't cook in a pot on a fire. That's for sure not allowed. A double derivative, so to speak. Toldot or says Marami Mechaviv Lo Shaman. We never heard that would be asur. It's totally mutar. Now he seems to be saying the cliche lo mavashel is like a spiritual, a metaphysical thing. The rule is
It's not
maybe it's
metaphysical. No, it's not bad. It's meaning you don't apply the rules of cooking in kli sheni. It's not about metaphysical.
Okay,
the rules
fine.
don't apply to kli sheni.
good. You could say it in different ways. Good. It doesn't apply in cliche. The Or Sameach, this opinion became very popular, so to speak, as a logical opinion in the 20th century. The Or Sameach on the Rambam, he writes this. We go back to the Mishkan. The Mishkan, normal way of cooking in the Mishkan would have been with Kli Rishon on a fire. Kli Sheni is not a normal way to cook. It's definitely a possible opinion. That Rav Soloveitchik liked very much. That is a possible opinion. But we have to try to address my questions. Go ahead. Yeah.
And Rambam says here also, if you have boiling water and you put it into a kli sheni, you're allowed to use the kli sheni normal. It says that straight up.
You can pour water. Okay, so that one is a question we're going to have to deal with either today or a different day.
It says
But-
you're allowed to put tavlin in boiling hot water
Yes.
in kli sheni.
The reason the Rambam says about the tavlin is the Gemara that we're going to see explicit, and the water is also based on the Gemara that we're going to see, the Mishnah that we already did. It's based on the Gemara,
Why?
but
Because kli sheni normal mashir. Like
yes,
the thing.
the Mishnah says I'm not allowed to put cold water into mecham, into the hot water urn. It can't open up. Let's say example today is very clear. You can't open up an electric hot water urn and take out tap water. It's empty. You can't put in tap cold water into your hot water urn on Shabbat. On Yom Tov, yes, but not on Shabbat because that's cooking the water. Okay? That would be Kli Rishon. What about Kli Sheni? Putting in cold water, you made coffee, you want to cool it down. The kids want, the soup is too hot, they want to put in something. So the soup is already Kli Sheni. You want to put in water. So the Gemara says it's mutar, and the Rambam is quoting that water, and this is relevant to milk. Could you put in, well, milk's already pasteurized, already cooked. But if you had milk that wasn't cooked, you went to the farm, you got fresh milk, whatever. You want to put a milk into your coffee, it wasn't cooked. Let's pretend the milk wasn't cooked. Could you put the milk into the coffee? Yeah. It's mutar. Why? It's Kli Sheni Hanavashel. So the Rambam writes that it applies to water, tavlin. Those things are, so to speak, undisputedly not what we call kalei bishul. Kalei bishul, things that are soft, get cooked easily in the Kli Sheni, but water is definitely not. So to me, those are important. They're not a big proof to everything else. Really, we all agree that water, milk, those don't cook in a Kli Sheni. Spices don't get cooked in Kli Sheni. We're only going to fight about, and we do assume that the little fish do get cooked in Kli Sheni. We're arguing about everything else in between. So the problem with the Or Sameach's approach is what we said, the two same old questions. One of them is the small little fish. How did the small fish cooking in them, how's that the right to cooking in Kli Sheni? Maybe you'll say, well, the normal way to cook fish is this way. It's a dochak, but it's an answer.
Well, the Gemara, they're trying to create halachot that the Gemara wasn't saying. Meaning, like, the Gemara gives the specific example of the fish.
Good, the Gemara says that, and that's true.
It doesn't say egg. It doesn't say
Good, it doesn't say it. So
anything
for
else.
the Gedolim, Ginav Radim, and Yaakov Faraji, the reason it doesn't say egg is true. We gave one example. The example is small fish. It would be true for any food that cooks easily. Would also be the same exact thing. You couldn't cook them in a Kli Sheni. We gave one example, so we don't need to mention a 5-minute. The Gemara and the Mishnayot are not meant to be exhaustive, like simple works of guides of how to keep Shabbat. They're meant to be like theoretical discussions, and you figure out everything else from there. So the fact that it
Gemara
leaves
should
it out
say-
didn't bother them.
Then the Gemara should say the kayasebo and everything that's like it.
No,
Or
because that's
anything
like
else.
that is a question perhaps you might find in poskim the way that they speak. Then the Mishnayot hardly ever. The Mishnayot give examples. They don't usually say kayotzebo. That's not a style. Meaning, the question here is the diuk is a diuk. Is something to talk about. Is it tiyufta? I don't think it's tiyufta. No, it didn't phase that very much. Okay, so that's the different approaches to this question. Halacha l'maaseh. Let's check out. Did this egg actually get cooked? It's about 20 minutes now. Let's check out and see if this 25 minutes are right. What?
How are you gonna take it out?
Oh, I don't actually have a way to get this out.
Yeah.
We'll spill out the water in the stick.
Yeah.
You'll say, okay, thank you so much. And then we'll tap it and see if it makes noise or not. Okay. So the Yaakov Yosef, Chacham Ovadia writes with the egg. He says it's a machloket. If cooking egg on Shabbat is the Rabbanan or the Raita. And he doesn't come out as mutar. he quotes the Marash Chiyun. He was a student of Maram and Habib. Marash Chiyun was his student, whatever. His student was the Rav Shlomo Chiyun, who conversed with the Gedolim in Salonika in Italy, and he was also in Yerushalayim 1700s. He was the Rishon LeZion, as was the Maram and Habib, and he writes, defending his rabbi, that it's allowed to do the egg on Shabbat. However, Chomavad is posek not like that, as most Gedolim are. If fundamentally, the way that we're posek, halakha is, Kli Sheni is not a rashel. Most things don't get cooked in Kli Sheni, the Gemara said so. But we're posek like the Rishonim understood. As it's based on observation. If it looks like it gets cooked, so then we can't deny the fact it gets cooked. But on things that we're not sure, we can go back to the general assumption, things are not getting cooked. Except for the tea, the coffee, or mutar and Kli Sheni. The, vegetables and meat and whatever, and certain things like that, they're not cooking in a Kli Sheni. But
Then the Gemara should have brought that cloud.
Yeah, okay.
If the Rishonim were gonna
So I
write
don't hear
that-
anything inside, but I have to
You
open
know
it
how
up
to do
and
the
check.
check?
You have to check.
You don't even have to open up. You could spin the egg, and if you stop the egg and it doesn't continue spinning, then it's
Albert, you want
hard
to try it? I don't know how to
Just
do
crack
it.
it.
I'm gonna, crack it and see
Crack
if
it
it's
So-
on the- just crack it on the table.
with the egg that isn't hard boiled. If you spin it and then stop it, it'll continue to spin because the yolk moving around the thing. Now since it's hard boiled in the egg, the yolk is in one spot.
Okay, so it's not gonna keep going.
It's not
Now,
gonna
it
keep
could be,
going.
there's different levels of hard boils. There's soft boiled, whatever. So
Alright.
I have to see, but is this edible? That's my question is it edible?
I crack it.
Crack
And
it.
edible to most people. Yeah, crack it. You can put the garbage over here.
You're that confident? Albie, you're that confident in your theory? Crack it on your head. You're that confident.
We don't need to make a mess.
It's very hot.
All right.
It's very hot.
Yes, thank you. So this is the halakha that Chamavadia came out was
Wow,
it was
beauty.
oh nice. Okay, so
Yeah,
I have
nice.
lunch today.
It might be a nice soft boil actually.
Oh, it's soft and everything. It's edible. I think.
No, it's cooked, definitely cooked.
Okay, so fine. This was the opinion of Chamavadia. He was strict about the egg, and he was strict about he was lenient on the tea and the coffee, but strict on the egg. Okay, basically, yes, there are some opinions where you even allow the egg.
He said, how to make tea and coffee though? You know, like,
Okay, so what halakha lama said the way Chamavadia would allow making tea and coffee. The way to do a Kli Sheni is you have an urn, you press the water on the urn, and then you have a mug that got the water inside. That mug is a Kli Sheni. So then, since that mug is a Kli Sheni, you can put a tea bag inside there according to Ramal Lubavadi. Now, if you want to be extra machmir, what you can do is a Kli Sheni. That's what it means, taking the mug and pouring it into another jug. Now, some degree, some opinions say you didn't solve it. What did Kli Sheni do with it? It's a joke. Meaning, if you think Kli Sheni is mavashel because it's very hot, Kli Sheni is also mavashel. That's what the Rishon Zalman said. Logically, it makes most sense. Like there really is no difference. If you think there's some difference, Moshe Feinstein held there's a difference. There are those who rely on the Kli Sheni.
What would be the difference?
The reason
walls
to say
are-
is that we only find in the poskim that they're all worried about Kli Sheni. The Uraim said Kli Sheni. And the Mishnah Berurah said you can't put any food in Kli Sheni. So Kli Sheni is not Kli Sheni. The problem is, if you look inside the Uraim, Rav Moshe didn't have the Uraim. In the Uraim, it says Kli Sheni is also a sort.
So he would say you can't make tea on Shabbat.
He would say, the Uraim probably not. But Rav Moshe allowed in America, Rav Moshe by the Ashkenazim is a big opinion. A lot of people do the Kli Sheni thing. Whatever. Chamavadia considered it like an addition, like not as like he's posek Kli Sheni on for no reason, but Kli Sheni he held was acceptable, whatever. It added something. Okay, that's the opinion. Okay, so bottom line, how do you make tea and how do you make coffee? Pour in the water into Kli Sheni, and then you can put in the tea bag, and you can put in the coffee. Now the coffee, the instant coffee is already cooked, so that's you can really put in a Kli Rishon. There's only one exception. This is where Malu Badi brought up, which is an important topic we have to see, which is there's a Mexican shelf. I put it back on the fire. That's for sure. I can't put the coffee beans if I have a pot on the fire and I'm starting to dump in the coffee beans to brew it on the fire. That's Mexican. That's not sure. Why? Okay, good. It looks like a little soft.
Soft boil.
Soft boil. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so soft. The yolk inside is not whatever. It's
Wow.
it's a big,
How many ways am I splitting this?
Anybody excited? You could.
That's
everybody
like
could eat
worth
it.
as much as gold.
Raise your hand if you're going to the split.
I'd be happy to try it. We have knives in the kitchen. All right.
Your
some
hands
salt
up
and
or
pepper.
no?
All right.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Fine.
I'll be back.
Brave soldier of you. So okay, let's move on. Okay, this was Kli Sheni. Any question on Kli Sheni? Now we're gonna do the Agadata about a few things about the swimming on Shabbat and the Eretz Yisrael.
What about raw coffee beans?
Raw coffee beans. So via coffee is what's in one. And Starbucks has a thing where they put in micro ground. They put in the actual beans. They're ground up very, very small, and you can put it into the coffee, into the hot water. And it's not going to be beans. Usually, you're never putting grinds into your coffee because they're not going to get cooked, and then you're going to be a mess. You can't even eat them. So, therefore, the Starbucks has a thing where they want it to taste like fresh coffee. They make something like that. And there are other brands do the same thing. I think Starbucks via coffee was like a first in that area, but there are many
So
that
the
mix
same
in.
thing as tea, just put it in after.
Okay, so the way to do it over there is, okay, according to Chopavadi, you could still do, since the instant one is already cooked.
This is also good roasted, we said.
And so we said roasted. According to Chopavadi, this is roasted. And he's quoting the Gina Baradim. That's right, not the Gina Baradim Tshuva where he disagrees.
fully
He's holding
cooked.
like the Ma'arif, he's quoting the Ma'arif, the Yaakov Faraj, which is roasted, beans already cooked. That is Chopavadi's opinion, according to the Ma'arif. Yes, that's what he's following. So let's just explain that a little more. Okay, we said you're definitely not allowed to put on a fire. That's Mexican Vashel. I can't pour beans into a pot on the fire. That's Mexican Vashel. Or into whatever, a Keurig is going to cook it on Shabbat. That's a Kli Rishon that looks like you're cooking on Shabbat. But into a Kli Rishon that's off the fire, you can put something that's already cooked. For example, I don't know if we have something, whatever, you had a pot of water that was on the fire, took it off the fire, you could put in the instant coffee. Okay, fine. What about you want to put in something that's raw, so you can't do a Kli Rishon. That's definitely not allowed, but Kli Sheni and Vashel. Okay, now, with the roasted beans, if they're ready cooked, since they're ready cooked technically, so and bishul after afiyah is mutar. Okay?
So I mean, what about, do you know, pour over coffee?
Yes, that's mutar. That's not borer because the
Right.
Mishnah Tolim.
You're extracting from it.
Yes, so that I would allow with the same rules we were saying before in terms of the cooking part. The reason it's not borer is because you're not taking any physical action to put a mixture together and take something out. There was a mixture of there was grinds in the filter, and you poured the water was clear in, and the water comes out by itself out. Now, that's a chidush.
That's the same thing as the filters on the sink.
Fundamentally, yeah, so some argue about the filters on the sink, but this is a Mishnah Tolim. Mishnah says that you're allowed to pour water through dregs. They would, poor people or whatever, people didn't want to waste, if you had grape seeds, they don't want to waste the grape seeds. So what you do is, you put all the dregs you make grape juice, or you make wine, and then you have a lot of leftover sediment, the dregs from the grape juice and from the wine. So you don't waste that. So you pour water through that, and it gets the flavor of the grapes, and you drink whatever you drink your grape juice. That's a Mishnah, that's mutar. So everybody discusses, why is it not borer? There are two answers, but whatever the answer to that is, the same thing applies to the coffee filter. Okay? So the coffee pour over filter is mutar. Now in terms of the bishul, it applies the same rules as we were talking about before. That if it would be instant coffee, no problem. If it would be coffee that was like supposed to be fresh or whatever, with a micro grind, so then I would not do irui kli rishon, I would do irui kli sheni. Have the cup from the mug and then pour it into that. Okay? Any questions? I'm moving on. All right. The Gemara Mem Amud Aleph, at the bottom said that we had talking about learning or talking Torah in the bathroom. Right after that you're not allowed to do except on frush mishura. Sounds like we're doing this. Amar Ravina Shema Mina L'Shem L'Chamet Tever B'Shabbat Chayav. Final lines from the bottom of there. We're going to run through the Gemara in 10 minutes. Say a few chidushim. So it's over there that it sounds like we're talking about mistakes of deraita of cooking on Shabbat in Chamet Teveria. And he said, "Oh, doing a Kli Sheni." What was the big deal? He was in Chamet Teveria. Cooking in Chamet Teveria be deraita. Why is he mad? Mivashel to Chamet Teveria. Amar Ravina Shayna Vasham Chamet Teveria Chayav Chata. That he's going to be Chayav. Hamasel Rebbe Lachar Gezerah. Why was Rebbe taking a bath on Shabbat? You're not allowed to. Gezerah. You're not allowed to take a hot bath on Shabbat. Must be it was the hot water springs. We said in Gezerah. People couldn't keep the hot springs Gezerah. They were allowed to keep. You're allowed to go in the hot springs on Shabbat. That's mutar. So Rebbe did that. Oh, excellent. Chazak. Howard. Okay, so if somebody has a hot spring water, it seems like you're allowed. It seems like cooking. There is deraita. So they go around. No. I'm like, please talk. This is weird. It's not a normal way to cook in Chamet Teveria. Therefore, that's not deraita. The Gemara comes out. What do we say? Is it
Delicious.
Okay, it's edible. Okay, good. Chazak. Baruch Hashem. Some brave Talmidim on this. Good. this was the first thing we mentioned that it's a weird way of cooking. For Chami Taveria on Bishul Akum or Shabbat is not regular cooking. Gemara says you're right. What is Rebbe all nervous about cooking in the Chami Taveria? Why is it Tame Klisheni? Says the Gemara, he didn't mean you could actually be chayav for cooking in Chami Taveria. He meant just dirabanan, makam mardud. The rabbis give lashes. What is makam mardud? What does this mean?
Derabanan lashes.
Derabanan lashes. So machloket over here. The Rambam in the Pesh Mishnayot says the rabbis do whatever they want. The Lefi wrote in Dayanim. If the rabbis see the guy was doing an Yisur Derabanan, they don't like it, they'll give him lashes. From the Torah, they don't have to, but they're allowed to teach him a lesson. The Aruch writes, the Rashi writes, you give him a third of the lashes Deraita. Deraita is 39, you give him 13. However, Rambam in Mishnah Torah, in Psachim, in Chametz Matzah Perak Vav Yalav Yedden, he writes Ad Shetis Nashol, like the Aruch. He says the guy who eats matzah on Erev Pesach is a very serious thing. You're supposed to appreciate the matzah for it should be exciting to have the matzah on Shabbat itself. We're going to have Saturday night to have the matzah on Pesach. To eat it on Erev Pesach is Makam Mardud, and Rambam writes Ad Shetis Nashol. The Rizbah writes, why are you killing it? So meaning agitation Hashem means Ram writes you can even kill him if he doesn't accept the lesson. He says, "Oh, I did a mistake. I'm doing shuvah. I'm not going to do it again." They don't kill him. It just means they can hit him until he learns his lesson. Okay. The Rizbah writes it depends. Okay. If he's learning his lesson after a few lashes, so you don't have to give him any more. What do you give him a lash? If it's also something that's not going to happen again, it just happened once. The guy made a mistake. End of the story. You don't give him makamar dude. The makamar dude is if it's an ongoing thing. It's something that's going to continue. And then he says, then the Rambam would say, agitation Hashem. What's the whole point of this? The point of this is the rabbinic decrees are serious. That's why the rabbinic Beit Din has such a thing. Nowadays, of course, we don't have this anymore. But that's the concept of the Makam Mardud. Amr Rabbi Zera Ana Chazid Rabbi Abahu the Shad Bambadi. Rabbi Zera saw a rabbi Abahu who used to, so to speak, swim in a bath on Shabbat. I don't know if he picked up his feet or not. Pshita Delakar, he didn't pick up his feet. Why? You're not allowed to go swimming on Shabbat. Seemingly, this is part of the Gezerah. In Mishnah Beit Alam and Vavam of that, you're not allowed to go swimming in a river. If you go swimming in a river, the Chachamim said you're not allowed. Why? What's the reason? The Gemara says says a reason over there. Hard to understand, perhaps. What's the reason, Saul? Raft. You might break over a branch and make a raft, so this way I'm not drowning in the river. So does that apply a pool? So the Gemara here says, well, it should apply. La kasha hadalei like you do that, hadei like you do that. Gemara says it depends. Does the pool have walls or not? If it has walls, then it's not domad and nahar. It's not like a river. If it doesn't have walls, it's not. Now, Shlomo quotes this. This is based on the Rif. What do the walls have? So the Rif says if it has walls, the water's not splashing out. Then the water is staying inside. The Balamor says, well, who cares? Walls that are water is splashing in, splashing out. Oh, he's talking about hotel carrying. If the guy's swimming on Shabbat and he's doing laps and he's splashing the water out of the pool, he's going to be carrying. Can't do hotel on Shabbat, carry from inside a private place to the public domain. That was the Rif was understanding. He said it doesn't make any sense because it says Brecha Afil B'Chatzer. Chatzer is a private area. You can't go swimming even in the Chatzer. So what did the Rif say? So the Balamor says the Rif's all wrong. No, but if you're looking at the Rambam, you're looking at Shulchan Aruch. The way that I understood the Rif means is it dominant to the Gezerah or not dominant to the Gezerah? When you have walls that's all splashing out, sometimes the pool is like a little bit similar to like a wave pool, a little bit similar to this pool, a little bit similar to the Nahar. So it's part of the Gezerah. But if there's walls that the walls are basically keeping in the water, that's not similar to a Nahar. It's not similar to a river. They were not including Gezerah. Most of our pools are like that today. That the water is kept inside. If you have proper walls, then it's not filled up too high. I don't know. It depends on how much they fill it, and some depends on the pool. Many pools are made that are not included in the Gezerah. When you go swimming normally, the water is all kept inside the pool. However, is it mutar to go on Shabbat?
Yes.
Technically mutar. Yisrael Yosef has 9 reasons why he talks about all the different things, why not to go. But bottom line, Chumavadia was not into it because of within the sanctity of Shabbat. He was not excited about this. That's what I recommend. Each and every person, ask your rabbis what you guys do on this. But yes, is it technically breaking malachat? No, it's not breaking any malachat. But within the spirit of Shabbat, what we should spend our Shabbat doing, Chumavadia definitely, and Rabbi Mansour quotes in Daily Halacha, it's not in the spirit of Shabbat to be swimming on Shabbat. Ask your rabbis, each family, each place has to do. If it's a question of swimming on Shabbat, or is it going to be doing worse things, then for sure the swimming is mutar. But that's a question of how to spend your Shabbat.
What if it's with family? Would you question that?
I would say if you always are doing it, it's gonna cause a lot of sorrow to your parents. You have to figure out how and when to discuss it, how and when to change from minhag. But I wouldn't even call it minhag, whatever. But the answer is you have to be careful. These discussions are important to think about. Whatever in these next few years, you define who you are, what you want to do in your family, in your kid, with your kids, whatever. So I would say, fundamentally, it doesn't make a difference if your parents are doing something. Your family always does this, so I'm not going to do it. I would still recommend. It's not the ideal of spirit of Shabbat is to focus on things of productivity, of Torah, learning, of maybe even talking, but swimming is not within the ideal spirit of Shabbat. Now, I'm not saying we should make such. If you have to judge, each person has to find. If you're going to do it, it's going to be the end of your parents kicking you out of the house. You became a black hat, and they're disowning you. So maybe that's not the right time to do it. You have to figure out each family, each place, and each time what this decision you have to make yourself, and you have to figure out when and where and what's the right thing to do. Once I asked Rabbi Mansour about going to the beach. After I came back from a year in Israel, 2 years in Israel, I asked him, my parents always went to the beach. Okay, they go to the beach. At the beach, we talked about one time, Shemir 9 problems, whatever. Question of the women don't dress on the beach, it's not a secret. And so, al pi halacha, it's really not proper. So, meaning a private beach is different, I'm talking about a regular beach. So, I asked him, so my parents go and they want me to go. It's a Sunday afternoon. So he said, it's not that they asked, is there a heter to go? He said, yeah, on the books there's a heter. But you have to figure out, what is the appropriate thing? He said he wouldn't tell a family that's always been going that it's asur, because he knows they're not going to listen. It's not going to be of any use. So you have to see, is it going to be mekabel? It'll work out, the people understand why you're doing this, why you're doing that. So then, fine. And he said, even if right now, you're right, go to the beach. But he said, when you get married, you have your own family, you do what you're going to do in your own family, you have to decide what you're going to do for your family. What your family does is not the same as your parents. We love your parents, you should always have come up for your parents. But when you make your own house, doesn't mean you have to do exactly identical to your parents and everything in the world. Even if you live a block away, you can still do a little different. But anyway, that is something that needs a little bit more forethought, how to apply these halachot. I'm only teaching, so to speak, what's on the books. To apply it, I'm happy to talk after, but these are hard questions, not simple. Okay? Other Gemara here, I guess we'll read more tomorrow. Rabbi Zeira wanted to make Aliyat to Eretz Yisrael. And his teacher, Rabbi Yehuda, wanted to stop him. He held it was asur to make Aliyat to Eretz Yisrael. Okay? He held Bavla, it's quoted in the Rambam, a strange thing. Bavla, you go to Bavel, and we're going to stay there. We can't ever leave. So it's asur to make Aliyat to Eretz Yisrael, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Zeira wanted to avoid this. He tried not to see his rabbi before he left. So we're going to talk about tomorrow what happened to him, and we'll talk about the concept of the Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, all those pieces. Okay, so I wanted to, I tried it. Anybody have any other thoughts? Was it edible?
Oh, it's good.
Not bad at all.
Not bad, okay.
Soft boiled, best boiled.